Mr. Shahak draws a parallel between the extermination of the Canaanites by the Jews in the Old Testament with the collective punishment of Palestinians for every single act of violence, whatever to collectively destroy, and I'm quoting from the Bible, all and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. Unquote. Shahak refers to those who use the Holocaust as a means to justify cruelty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, colleagues and Iranian comrades. I shall speak with pauses, if I can remember to assist our hard-working translators. I am deeply grateful for this generous invitation to take part in these historic 2 days we share. As Dr. Mohammad's opening address reveals, this conference has given voice to an urgent international need. These 2 glorious, truth-expressing days reminds me of the famous scene in Shakespeare's play King Henry V, when this medieval nobleman tells his modest band of comrades that those who were not there to stand firm with us shall one day soon come to regret with shame and sorrow their cowardice. In our era, we have precious few noble statesmen, and so I have come to Tehran to congratulate the Iranians and those people who voted Dr. Ahmadinejad as their president. Seek to speak the truth bravely, and no matter for their personal cost, in being demonized, ostracized, or even imprisoned, as they are in Europe and Canada for their rational opinions, which we thought was the glory of our civilization. Indeed, when President Ahmadinejad called the so-called, quote, free world, unquote, grotesquely hypocritical for its deceit to bring so-called, quote, democracy to the Middle East and Iran, he has been fully vindicated, proved indisputably correct, for we from the so-called free world are only free to voice our source-skeptical views in peace-loving Iran. Now I must at once apologize to my respectable hosts who do not want to include in their program a critique of Judaism. Well, this session's program's topic is Nazism, Zionism, and Holocaust. And I am sorry to say, these topics will get us nowhere. For I believe that the two great prophets, Christ and Mohammad, saw in Judaism a dangerously misanthropic tendency, and they each held up a mirror to the fundamentally anti-Gentile narcissism in the pious deceit of a Jewish godfather and its chosen children, between only the chosen children and their Jewish godfather. This is a bad father role model, if we speak in psychological terms. For we know that as parents, that in life, a father who favors one of his children above the others will increase a child's natural self-centeredness. May I say that Judaism and its followers do have a right to exist. They do. And a safe place on the planet must be found where Jews can follow their beliefs, but without interfering with other cultures. And of course, the world now knows that we were lied to when we went into yet another inter-Gentile war, this time over Iraq, for no side's benefit save the third party. The facts are organized world Jewry in the form of the Zionist entity does have weapons of mass destruction since the 1940s. A curious situation indeed. Iran and Iraq do not. Israel has driven the Palestinians into the sea. Iran has not. We must speak the truth, the whole truth, bravely, as Christ and Mohammad did the Palestinians when Hitler was aged 8 years old. No connection. No culpability there. Zionism predates Nazism, as one of the NETZ gentlemen pointed out yesterday, by half a century. Just like Judaism's anti-Gentilism predates so-called anti-Semitism. We must get the cause and the effect clear. The one question we never hear asked in public is why Jewish group behavior throughout the ages, and even well before Christianity, has met everywhere eventually with angry pogroms, the best known being the expulsion policies of the 1940s in Europe. Equally, I do not want my own race eliminated through the mass migration policies curiously undertaken since the establishment of Holocaustianity. There would seem to be some kind of policy connection. we diminish the true nature of our races and our cultures in this disastrous multicultural, multiracial experiment, which curiously is to be implemented everywhere except Israel. The real issue behind them all is the conflict between Judaism's basic anti-Gentile supremacism, no matter how piously or poetically packaged, and the revisionisms of it, as I see it, held up for us to reflect upon the dangers by the two wise prophets, Mohammad and Christ, who teach us to speak the whole truth bravely. But if we fail to address the whole truth and instead collude like cowards with useless half-truths, Judaism's mission to have the nations bow to its supremacy will mean we keep performing our intergentile wars like those of World War I and World War II and on Iraq and next on Iran by proxy, but to no benefit to any Gentile party, owed to the usual third-party beneficiaries. And so I thank you for your patience in listening to perhaps an unwelcome aspect. Please forgive me.
Ich habe eine Frage an Sie. Verzeihung, Rudolf Kimeli, Süddeutsche Zeitung. Würden Sie sich noch mal vorstellen? Ja, ich möchte Sie kommen. Aber lassen Sie mich einmal Sie fragen. Was haben Sie dagegen, dass diese Behauptung vom Holocaust von allen Wissenden, Geschichtler, Forscher so behandelt wird, dass am Ende die ganze Wahrheit herauskommt und niemand mehr daran zweifelt? Was haben Sie dagegen?
Ich habe gar nichts dagegen.
Warum behandeln Sie das nicht im deutschen Fernsehen?
Nein, ich glaube, dass sehr viele Forscher sich mit der Frage auseinandergesetzt haben.
Sehr viele, okay.
Ja.
Aber es gibt auch sehr viele andere, die überhaupt nicht so gut auskommen.
Ich glaube schon, dass alle zu Wort kommen konnten.
ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to speak briefly on the relationship that can be ascribed to revisionism and Middle East. And of course, when I say Middle East, I understand basically the heart of the problem of the Middle East, which is Palestine. I would like first to allude to a well-known politician, which is maybe the most hated politician by the Western press. His name is Al-Hajj Amin al-Husseini, and he was a member of a great Palestinian family and a mufti of Jerusalem. This man has an incredible political career, which makes it a fascinating personage of our history. During the 30s, he was one of the leaders of the beginning of, after all, we could call that Intifada. It was the struggle that the Palestinians started in the 30s, in the mid-30s, against the growing influence of the Jewish organization, the Zionist agency, and the obvious complacency of the British authorities towards the Zionist enterprise. Obviously, Amin was a nationalist, was someone who wanted the independence of Palestine in the hands of the Palestinians. And we could safely describe him as an Arab nationalist. But he tried to get some kind of support from the Rome regime, from Mussolini, who, just to say that there was already a connection between the Middle East, meaning the Palestine problem, and the European politics and the war and what happened during this World War II period in Europe and in the Middle East. It's a long story, in fact, which is totally obscured today, totally vanished between the Middle East and the events basically in Nazi-dominated Europe at the time of the war. And of course, the way the war finished by a total defeat of the fascist regime and the Nazi regime meant also that all those who had supported